you have to figure out what success means to you, right? It's different for everyone. And we've said this many times, but I'll tell you that if you believe success is money, cars, houses, vacations, your persistence and patience will be very minimal. Because as soon as you acquire, and you probably will, as soon as you acquire said money, it's going to go away. Welcome to the McGuire Enterprise Podcast with Joe and James on this special little episode here in late January, early February. And what's interesting is we're going to talk a little bit about really one main word, but actually two. And the two words are, if you're ready, Joe, you ready to just dive in? The two words are patience and persistence. And yes, I did hear those two words from a pastor, and they always like to use, they like to stick with P's or F's or D's or whatever, right? They always like to keep their points.
It's called alliteration.
Alliteration, that's what it is. See, I'm just an uncultured swine, and that's why I run businesses. I don't speak really for a living.
I thought you were going to say that's why you hang with me. So that
well,
I can make up for your unculturedness. Go on. Peas. We were talking about PPs.
So, yes. So patience and persistence and passion as well.
Wow. Was that the other point in the message?
That's the third one. That's the third one that we're going to talk about.
Wow. All right.
But talking a little bit about persistence and patience. And what's interesting is we're only in January, and I'm already hearing and listening and talking to people that they just want to give up.
I quit everything already.
Did you even start anything?
Yeah, for the first 3 or 4 days, and then it's too hard, too much work.
Too hard. Yeah. And so I want to talk about persistence first. And I took a couple notes, and by took a couple notes, Joe, I mean I sent you over some ChatGPT information. But it was very interesting on what that on what that brought to us. But also, just want to share some things from our experience in business, in sales, and management. Obviously, this is a business franchisee podcast, and we want to try to make sure we're giving good information and value beyond just what we think. And so, Joe, just talking about persistence, if I'm a 25-year-old or if I'm a 55-year-old, how does persistence help me get to where I want to go? Or how does it help me move to where I should go? And maybe some practical ideas on that. Any thoughts?
Well, I think when it comes to persisting, I think a lot of times we can associate that with work. And by work, I mean like hard work, like it's effort, persistence. I think when you look at the idea, the concept that most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 5, right? I mean, that's one of the kind of phrases you hear bounced around.
Oh yeah. It's typically on like an Instagram or like a viral
something.
TikTok,
But or in a book or,
Right.
It's kind of a cliche phrase, but it's factual. If you you personally look back at your life and look what you've accomplished in 5 years and imagine kind of thinking of what that would look like in a 1-year time span. It's like overwhelming.
Yes.
But that's where the persistence comes from and the goal setting and picking what you want to do and where do you want to be. But if you don't have the, what's the word? Stick to itness, the stick to itness,
longevity
to do that, then, you end up, and that's what we see a lot of times, I think, with the current, kind of generation looking for work and employment is we want to go right to the top right away. We want to go straight to management. We want to go straight to whatever the top paying job, all those types of things. It's the same thing in sales. You want your pipeline to be full. We want to be making the full commission. We don't know it takes 8 months. It takes 10 months. It takes 12 months. Then you see the flip. Then you see the progress. Then you see those things. But the idea of being persistent, um, it's something that you really have to get in your head, that it's incremental steps, it's small steps, that then you look back and you're like, oh wow, look what we did. Look what we did in even just a month. If you set goals and things like that, for you, let's say in Crumble, you could be looking at a scenario of trying to cut costs or reduce something, and you say, listen, in 3 months we need to be here. Mm-hmm. Well, if you look at it on a smaller scale, it can be discouraging because, we didn't make the changes we didn't see the growth. It's the persistence mindset of, no, we got to keep working for this. What is the end game? What is our 12-month goal? What is our 24-month goal? Things like that. So I think with regards to persistence, the key is realizing that it is the component or the character component that is needed to achieve.
Okay. And I love what you said there, but let's dive a little bit deeper into persistence, into maybe the psychological aspect, because you said mindset a couple times, and that's psychological. That's within our mental attitude, our mental makeup. That is much different than just saying, oh, well, be persistent and get this done and X, Y, and Z. There's more to it than just being persistent. So how would you explain like the mindset? How would you explain psychology? And before you answer that question, persistence, and I'm actually going to pull up Napoleon Hill's book because it's incredible, but persistence is a personality type trait. And I read this quote. It's by Angela Duckworth. She's like an American psychiatrist or psychologist. And she defines persistence in the psychological aspect of passion and perseverance towards a long-term goal. What do you say about that? You're muted. You're muted, though. This is Joe's first time on the podcast, by the way.
It's a pretty solid statement.
Is that what you were going to say?
That's what I was going to say. It's a pretty solid statement. It seems factual. Say it again.
So she said the psychology aspect is a power of passion and perseverance towards a long-term goal.
I got to be honest. That's kind of what I said earlier.
And she goes on to say it's considered a significant predictor of success, more so than talent or intelligence in many cases. Think about that for a second. And I've been saying this.
You mean like showing up to work every day? Like just showing up and getting ahead?
I've been saying this for months on the show and the podcast now, that I believe success is inevitable. And here's someone who is saying it as well. If we show up, if we continue to persist, it's a predictor of success. It will happen. Right? No? Maybe?
Yeah.
So
I think that component is what's missing. Like just perseverance, just not giving up, whatever it is. Just keep going. Now, obviously there's a point where shifts need to change. I mean, things need to shift. You might need to make changes. But that doesn't mean you just stop. And like I said, I mean, you've seen it too. Who are the first people that you start to look at, for management and things like that? It's the reliable people. It's the people that show up. It's the people that don't just get discouraged right away.
Right.
And so to say that, success is inevitable, just keep showing up. Just keep participating. Just keep making the phone calls. Just keep putting the effort in, working towards a goal. Goals can change. That's fine. We talk about that.
Yep.
You need to make pivots and adjustments. But as long as you keep showing up, but the idea that, it got hard or, you want a surefire way to set yourself apart.
Yes, I do. Tell me.
It's just keep showing up. When people stop, when people start giving up, when people have excuses, just keep showing up. That will get you towards the goal. I mean, just going through stuff in life. Just maybe you're going through, you get fired, you going through a divorce, going through scenarios, depression, just dealing with these things in life,
Mm-hmm.
heartbreak, loss of a family member, sickness, all these sort of things. Keep getting up, keep one foot in front of the other. I mean, that's just some of the things that I've learned when it gets hard. Keep doing what you know is right and what you need to do. Persist. And then you look back in 3 years, 5 years down the road, oh man, that was like the worst time of my life. That was difficult. That scenario, was crushing at the time, losing my job, whatever. But then, oh wait, 5 years down the road, I'm in a better spot. I
Right.
learned from that. I kept going. I used the energy of maybe, like I said, losing a job or getting fired, whatever it was. You turn that energy into something that drives you more, and drives you further, and learn from those mistakes. And that's where that persistence comes, to the quote that you just said. That's where the success comes from.
Right. Yeah.
Being able to keep going. So yeah, I don't know.
No, 100%. And so we're going to dive more into that, but along the psychological aspect, if we run over to Napoleon Hill's book, Think and Grow Rich, which I highly recommend, one of the most impactful books in my opinion and in my life, he actually, in part of his book, literally has the steps that lead to a habit of persistence. And he says that persistence is one of the keys, one of the 13 keys towards success. And what he says here is almost identical to what this lady, Angela Duckworth, says. Was it Angela Duckworth? Yes. Angela Duckworth said, but he said this 80 years ago. He said this back in the early, I think in the late 1800s, early 1900s or something like that, when he wrote his book for the first time. But he says it's these four things, and this is how you develop persistence. Number one is you have a definite purpose backed by a burning desire for its fulfillment. That's exactly what Angela said. She said, long-term goals, right? Perseverance towards a long-term goal. But he's saying it's a burning desire for fulfillment. Then he says a definite plan expressed in continuous action. So exactly what you literally just said, Joe. Showing up to work, showing up every day, giving it your best. The third thing he says to develop persistence, and I love this one. This is probably one of my favorite, is a mind closed tightly against all negative and discouraging influences, including, but not limited to, he didn't say that, but including negative suggestions of relatives, friends, family, and acquaintances.
What about strangers?
Also strangers, but mainly acquaintances. Like, you shouldn't be listening to strangers anyways. Pretty sure most of our parents taught us not to even be around strangers. So, let's not be weird about it. And then the fourth thing is a friendly alliance with one or more people who will encourage you to follow through with both your plan and your purpose. And I truly believe that, again, success is inevitable. You define what success is in your mind, not what social media tells you, not what the world tells you. But if you develop persistence and you can get that in your mind, like with anything, with sales, with your marriage, with your being a father, being a mother, with your business, with your relationships, with your spiritual life, your healthy life. Persistence in all these areas will create inevitable success, in those areas for you as well. So the let's talk about the goal side a little bit, Joe. Like, we're here in January, February, and people are already giving up. Why is it so easy to just give up on some of those goals? Because that's what develops persistence. You need to have something that's driving you through. So why is it so easy?
Well, it's what's the purpose behind it? What's the purpose behind your goal? So again, I mean, we kind of, it's a cliche and it's a joke. It's the gym, right? The gym gets full. All the people come in the first couple of weeks of January, it gets full, and then you don't see them again. And eating, fitness goals or maybe health goals, things like that. Um, I think it comes down to the component we just talked about, which is, okay, what's the reasoning behind it? If it's just, um, I want to do this, or other people are doing it, or people are encouraging me, or it's the new year, so I should do this. I should, whatever it is, I should do
Right.
it. What's the actual goal? And it's hard to be motivated about something that's like a chore,
Sure.
or like you're just doing it to check off a box. Well, it's January and I really should stop doing this, or I should start doing this because it's January. That's not, things like that aren't going to stick. And so picking with the idea of persistence, I've found always, again, picking a goal. Saying, I should start doing this is different than saying I want to gain 5 pounds of, muscle or whatever, or I want to lose 5 pounds,
Right.
because you have something that you're achieving. There's a goal that you're aspiring to.
Right.
I want to earn a raise. I want to be promoted. Those are different things than like, well, I should show up on time. I don't want to get fired. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's all that mentality is very different. And so it comes back to some of the things we've talked about with goals. What is the goal that's driving the persistence, and or vice versa? Use your persistence, and maybe you're just persistent person. You're a person of habit. Maybe you do show up every day, but you haven't picked a goal.
Right.
So you've got these good habits, but you're not working towards anything.
Right.
So I think having a goal really drives that. And I mean, if you look at, January, using resolutions and things, I see a lot of people that just say, well, I want to do this, but there's no end game. Well, I should start going to the gym. Right. Well, yeah, it should, of course, we should be more active. We want to take care of ourselves, be healthy for our families, all those type of things. But if the mindset is just, well, I should do it,
Right.
that's where you get the drop off. If the mindset becomes, you know what? No, I really need to be healthier, or I'm getting older and I want to take care of my body so I can be around for my kids
Yeah.
and my grandkids and things like that. That's a motivating factor that can drive persistence. But the idea of just starting something to start something, I think that's where it falls off, because if you stop it, then nothing matters. If I'm not working towards, let's say in work, like a promotion, and maybe your manager has talked to you about things, or you want to maybe say, save up enough to start a business or to make a change in career, right? You want to do that. Picking that as a goal will drive you towards that. And so
Right.
now January hits and you say, I want to do this, I want to do that, because the end game is this.
Right.
I'm working towards what June 1st is going to look like,
Yep.
versus, well, I should do these things. Now,
Right.
when you stop doing them, there's no outcome. You're not even letting yourself down, because it was like, I wanted to do whatever, I'll do it again. I'll start in the summer. You can constantly push off the things that don't have a goal or an achievement tied to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you said there, tying something to it, right? Let's be honest, and this is aggressive, but if we had a gun to our head,
Okay, that's,
that's
I mean,
aggressive. But if we had a gun, think about it for a second. If we had a gun to our head, or to our kids' head, that if we didn't accomplish a goal, it would be the end for them or for us, then we would do it, right? We would do it. And I think that's very extreme. That's a very extreme example. But do you want to be around for your grandkids? Do you want to be around for your kids? Do you want to give like nobody in your church can give? Do you want to be able to start an orphanage or an adoption agency or whatever it is? Like, are there these goals and dreams that are literally just dreams? And you're like, that's impossible. I could never do that. Well, it starts somewhere. It starts with a small seed that has to get planted before you can actually move forward to something potentially more exciting, and then start building those habits and building that persistence. And so I love what you said, just tying something to it. And yeah, that might be an extreme example, but that would work. I think that would probably motivate you, Joe. Am I wrong?
oh, I think so. It seems extreme though. But I get it. I get what you're saying.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, it's having a goal, I mean, a gun to your head is more of like a threat. It's like
Sure,
a
sure.
punishment,
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
maybe.
but no, I think when it comes to persisting, there having an end game and an achievement
Hmm.
and a reward for yourself helps give you a reason to
Correct. I love that.
maintain the course.
So let's talk about the second P, and the second P is patience. And I really believe that both of these coincide. And I'll tell you a little bit about the background. I was having breakfast with a pastor from out in Arkansas. He's written a book, very interesting book that some Christians might not like, but I think it's an incredible book on how yeah, I'm not going to get into that, but very interesting ideas, very biblical. Comes in my opinion, into a perfect timing of where we are in our economy in our country, about trying to be more business oriented and so on. Anyways, we're talking and just asking him a couple questions about his church and kind of how he grew it and how they leveraged real estate to help fund things and a nonprofit that's in the business. And I just asked him, I just said, like, where did you come up with these ideas? How long did you see that it came to fruition, so on and so forth? And he literally just said those two things. He said, James, like, I just had persistence over decades, over years of failure after failure. And his ultimate goal was obviously growing the kingdom and discipling people. And so there's so many goals attached to what his end goal was. But he said that persistence, and then he said, but also patience, knowing that what I'm building and what I'm doing and what God's work is happening, how it's being built, is not going to happen in 3 weeks or 2 years or 5 years. And so he looks back over 30 years and sees what, God did through him. But so I just took that and I said, that is so interesting because it transfers into most aspects, if not all aspects of life. I think about getting married with my wife. I persisted after her when we were dating. We're persisting in our relationship and our communication, but we have to be patient. We need to evolve in our relationship as we have a daughter now and as we potentially adopt a second. And so, like, we can't just expect our marriage to be perfect after day one. Same thing with our business. I mean, I'm sure you'd agree with sales. You get into sales, you plan on knocking on a lot of doors and making a lot of phone calls. But after a certain number of phone calls, you're going to start to see some success, right? And then if you're patient enough, you're going to make a career out of it. You're going to make a really good wage, and you could potentially do something much bigger. So I want to dive it. That's just kind of premise around why I wanted to talk about those two. But if we want to start considering patience, and this is something that I truly have to work on. Joe, I don't know where you are with the patience aspect.
I'm pretty flippin' patient.
Some might call that procrastination.
Nope.
No,
Nope. That's not what we're talking about. You're
no,
talking about something else. I'm
patience.
talking about patience.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty flippin' patient. Yeah.
Okay. So with patience, how would you, how would you encourage somebody to be patient, whether it's in the business world, whether it's parenting? Parenting can be very challenging, whether it's maybe in the marriage. Where would you start if you were going to coach somebody on, hey, man, like, you got to work on patience? Just pump the brakes a little bit.
Well, I'm definitely an expert on patience. So let me
Really?
let me
Okay.
tell you about it. Um, there's a there is a difference between patience, um, and like you said, procrastination, and or I'm going to call it like foolishly waiting.
Oh, so we're not just supposed to sit on the couch and wait for a magic sign?
No. So when I think of patience, um, I think it kind of goes back. If you're being patient properly, there's some sort of an outcome that you're waiting for, right? There's a scenario where um, I have to wait. So in
Mm-hmm.
business it could be a scenario with sales and prospecting, things like that. Your personal life, it could be a scenario of kids. I think when you have kids, your patience is tested a lot, but it's
A lot.
it's associated with an outcome, right? A desired outcome. We're patiently waiting for A, B, and C. And so it kind of goes right in line with the persistence. So if we're in the business world, or even in personal life, right? If we're shooting for an improvement in whatever, let's in your personal life, in maybe a growth in the company, right? We want revenue goals or things like that. The patience means kind of, in my mind, kind of staying the course, right? I'm gonna, I'm not gonna make a crazy decision, or I'm not gonna jump ship and change. So sure, maybe I'm being persistent in my activities, right? And I'm showing up every day, but the outcome isn't happening as quick as I want it.
Right.
And that's where the problem lies. Well, we wait. So, okay, so we're going to cut this corner. I'm still persistent in what I'm doing. I have the goal of, the revenue growth, or I have the goal of the profit and loss being A, B, and C. Um,
Yep.
when you're being patient,
Yep.
it's that staying the course component. Persistent gets us up every day, gets us doing the quality of work, the same
Yep.
quality. But for example, it could be, hey, we want to grow. So I could take a shortcut and I could purchase this other company. Okay. But it's going to put me in this debt, and it's going to do this and it's going to do that. And they don't really have like, they don't have something that we need specifically. Maybe their books aren't fantastic, but
Mm-hmm.
we know that we know, in theory, our brain is saying, well, we know it could do this for us.
Right.
That could be a bad decision. I mean, I guess that's maybe not the best analogy, but the idea is that, if you maintain the course and that you're heading in the right direction, don't get discouraged if it takes a little bit longer. And
Well,
that's that long-term goal. As long as you're still working towards that end game, I think
yeah.
that's where the patience comes into play. Being persistent, being patient, and then you look back 10 years down the road and you can see the things that you've accomplished.
Well, and I want to just talk about that shortcut that you just mentioned. So, we could digress here for a minute if we want, but I think when you take a shortcut and you aren't patient, and there's some things right now that I'm having a really hard time within our business being patient with, like really hard time being patient with. But
Yeah, Jeff, I understand. I understand, Jeff.
it's not Jeff.
Oh, okay,
Trust
okay.
me, it's definitely not Jeff. Um, if we take that shortcut, what do you think the ramifications sometimes of taking a shortcut could be?
Negative or positive?
I mean,
Just anything?
there could be both. There could be both. But what would be some negative to the shortcut? What are you going to miss? That's just what I'm thinking about, right?
Go on.
Okay. What if you take XYZ shortcut to buy a business, let's say, well, you now are buying a business that's ready to go. And there's nothing wrong with that. But now you don't necessarily, if it's not in your industry, you don't necessarily understand how to operate it. So there's so many components to something you could miss if you weren't patient. Same thing with sales. Let's say, for example, if you just buy a whole bunch of leads, or you're using this new AI technology, not that it's bad, please don't get me wrong, big fan of AI. But if you're using a lot of this new technology that's just getting you leads, getting you responses, then you're missing a whole component of communication. You're missing a whole component of the chase. You're missing a whole component of how to communicate with people and how to develop persistence a lot of times. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I'm trying to weigh my words carefully here.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, I mean, there could be good and bad, but typically when I hear the word shortcut, it feels like it has a negative connotation
It does. It feels a
because
little
you're
downer.
unless you're driving from point A to point B and
Definitely
you've got
take
a
a
shortcut
shortcut. Absolutely.
that, but in business, taking shortcuts, not doing the work feels like it could have bad ramifications.
Yeah, and I think you just need to weigh the odds and get advice, seek counsel, talk to people who've been there and done that. I hope at some point that I'm doing well enough, our business is doing well enough that we can acquire some businesses and we can scale rapidly through that. I think I think there's a lot of wisdom in that, where you can find a dying business or a business that isn't being operated well and you can turn it around and work it. But if I just bought businesses and didn't learn how to operate them, I'd be missing a whole bunch. And so I think the patience, just a very simple example, I think that's a good example, Joe, of patience, of learning and going through the mud and understanding how something operates. Like, you're not just going to get married and then boom, turn a light switch and now you've been married 20 years and everything's hunky dory. All the stuff you're learning over those 20 years of marriage or 10 years of marriage or whatever it is. Same thing with your kids. You don't want your kids to just be 18 years old and move out of the
Yes, I
house.
do.
You,
Yes, I do.
okay.
Yes.
Joe's kids, if you're listening, get out of the house
No, stops. They'll be gone soon enough.
soon enough. Enjoy it. Be patient, Joe. Be patient.
Yeah.
So, so the point to that, just that shortcut is, I don't know. I would say be careful with shortcuts and things that could potentially. Don't be so persistent and so focused on the end goal that you miss what's right in front of you and the learning opportunities. Because then that gets into a whole different category of character and integrity. And you need to build those building blocks of character. That's why when people win the lottery, millions and millions of dollars, they spend it in a week because they haven't built enough character to understand how to utilize that. So, anyway, we digress.
Not really. We kind of stayed on topic, actually.
Okay, we didn't digress, but
Yeah.
but continuing to discuss patience, how important do you think patience is with persistence to eventually meet that long-term goal or that outcome? Like, do we really
Well,
need to be patient? Can we
yeah,
shortcut?
I think, I think they kind of go hand in hand with goals. So, or achievements. Unless you have a very short term goal, which is fine.
Yes,
But then
eat dinner. Great
but
job.
then once that's achieved, we move on to the next thing, or we end up in that kind of stagnant process.
Mm-hmm.
But they go hand in hand. I want to say, I mean, they're not the same word because they definitely have different implications, but they they truly kind of complement each other. As you're being persistent in whatever your achievement is, your goal is, your process is, it's going to take time, which requires patience. Different levels for different, um,
Goals or
right,
scenarios.
long term, short term. If it's a year process that we have to go through, all right, well, that's a lot less of a waiting game. If you have to build something, I don't know why I just thought of this, but like a pyramid,
If you have
seeing
to
that.
build a
Yeah, I don't know.
pyramid,
I
what
don't know
in
why
the
that came to mind.
world is going
I I
on?
thought something. I go, what's going to take a long time to build? Well, a pyramid, those
It's
took,
true.
depending, dozens to, I don't want to say hundreds because I don't know, but
I actually
I
think
think
about
some
that,
of
to
them
be
did.
honest with you. I
You
think
know,
about that in construction. I'm like, oh, construction's got to be like big projects, like road projects, bridges. I'm like, that's got to be the worst for somebody like me who wants to see something done quick. Oh,
yeah,
years.
yeah, but that's what it takes. It takes consistency, persistence, patience, all those things that. So, I mean, like I said, I really think they go hand in hand, whether you realize it or not. And if you're being persistent in something, truly being persistent, then you're probably exercising patience also. And you're just not realizing it. So
Mm-hmm.
I think once you realize that those two things are different components, it might give you a clearer vision of what you're achieving and how to achieve it. So yeah, I think that they're both equally as important, but um, separate for the most part.
I don't believe patience is natural. And maybe I'm wrong. For me, maybe patience is natural for some people, but I believe patience is not natural. I believe it's a muscle that we have to work on. I would almost call it delayed gratification, or what's the other word I'm looking for? Um, you know what I'm saying? Delayed gratification. It's this muscle that you almost have to work. You have to tease yourself with. And in this society, and with all of this technological advances and this media hitting us all the time, no one wants to be patient. Absolutely no one wants to be
Well,
patient.
everything's instant, but I think on that note, persistence is the same thing. I mean, all these kind of qualities that if you want to grow them in yourself is, they take effort. They take effort in the beginning. So if you know you're not a patient person and you need to learn, if you know you're not persistent or you get distracted easily and you're jumping from job to job or idea to idea and nothing's sticking, um, you have to intentionally work those things. And it could be, I mean, that's anything in life. It could be your the quality of the work you do. It could
Mm-hmm.
be maintaining habits. It could be your daily habits. It could be anything. It could be going to the gym. Like, you have to force yourself to do it. And as we know, once you get to something, typically 60 days of repetitiveness, now
Yeah.
things become habitual.
60
So they don't
days.
take.
Wait, I thought it was like 21.
No, stop. You're not being patient. It takes longer. It's 60. 60 days or longer. So but then you have something that's a habit. And so, like, patience, I don't think that's something that's like an intrinsic habit that you can forcibly practice every day, whereas being persistent in certain tasks or things is. But as you say, you know what? No, I know the outcome is good, or that I'm working for, and I need to be persistent in my pursuit. Um, then that's where the patience comes from. So say that 5 times fast.
I'm not going to say that any times fast.
It's a lot of P words.
So let's talk briefly, kind of as we maybe close up, the challenges against persistence and the challenges against patience. Um, Again, I think we mentioned a few, but I just want to mention, like, just I think there's a component of maybe self control as well. That, again, going back to society and technology, that we're so just inundated with, all this just firebomb of media. Get this now, get the new iPhone every single year. I can't wait till it comes out, and the new car and the new this. So I would say it's just firebomb from society of not being patient. I don't know, what your thoughts are, but though that's a real challenge if you're not paying attention and guarding yourself and having self control. You're just going to go from one sales job to the next sales job, one business to the next business. You're never going to develop a persistence or a relationship with an employer, a business, sales team that will, if you're patient, eventually lead to something fruitful and more successful. What would you say some other challenges would be with those two?
Probably, I mean, distractions. I mean, you've got
Shiny
distraction.
object syndrome?
You've got, yep, but that kind of goes back to what you said. You'll see people, and I'm sure you've experienced this. I mean, Crumble has starting wages, things like that. You're not, it's a entry level positions. So instead of people getting the idea of, hey, if I persist here, just to keep using that word,
Mm-hmm.
if I stick it out, I can be promoted. I could do this. Here's an exciting company. I could jump on. I could become a regional. I could become, a director. I could become all these things. It's, the bakery across the street offered me 50 cents more an hour, so I'm going to go jump on
Hey.
that. And you see that's what you see,
Right.
kind of job hopping. So you've got that kind of mentality with this kind of instant gratification. And then you have the distractions, things, easily distracted, debt. We want
Yeah.
everything now. So we go get a bunch of debt, and now
Yep.
we're paycheck to paycheck, and we got to work 2-3 jobs just to stay ahead. So there's that instant gratification that we want instead of delaying that. Um, all those types of things, that mindset. It comes back to mindset, an achiever's mindset or a maintainer's mindset. And if you're just maintaining, then, I hate to say it, but that maintenance, yeah, I guess it requires a little bit of persistence to just maintain that level of life that you want
Right.
or are stuck in.
Right.
And then you have an achiever's mindset that will be able to delay the gratification and or say, oh, if I want whatever, this goal, this object, this car, this lifestyle, this house, I want to be able to give, I want to be able to help others. Well, in order to help others or to be charitable, well, you got to take care of your own house first, right?
Yep.
You've got to be able to have those things in order. And I think all that type of stuff becomes very quick distractions.
Yep.
And I know, I'm teaching my kids not to fall into some of the traps that I did, which was, debt, early on debt, and useless debt, credit card debt and car loans when you really shouldn't have that car payment, things like
Yep.
that. All those things get in the way of what we need to do. We can be persistent in stupid things too,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where I think persistence can be used both good and bad. We can persist in bad habits
Oh,
just as easy
100%.
as we can persist in good habits. We can be patient to the point of procrastination and or, oh, look, 20 years of my life went by and I accomplished
Nothing or very
nothing,
minimal.
and or I didn't even have any goals. So I don't even know that I didn't accomplish anything. I'm
Right.
just still in the same spot.
Yep.
And there's lots of people that are in that type of a lifestyle and a position in life too, where it's like you don't even, I know we've talked about this, you don't even know what you missed. You
Right.
don't even know the opportunities that passed right by you and other people jumped on
You don't. Yeah. You
because
don't know what you don't know.
right. So I think channeling persistence, patience, purpose, passion. I'm just trying to think of a bunch of
Wow.
P
A lot
words
of
right
P
now.
words.
All those things, channeling them in the right direction is one of the keys of success. So, like you said, success is inevitable if we're persistent in the right things, and if we're choosing where we focus that persistence.
Yeah.
And that's going to be, I think, the keys. That's the little extra key to the success. And success, remember, I want to be clear, we're not talking necessarily about financial success. We're
Mm-hmm.
talking about personal success. Everybody has a different role. And if you base your success off of somebody else's standard for that,
Yep.
that's where you end up getting distracted too. Oh, I have to have this because so and so has it. I have to have this position. Um, there's nothing wrong with being persistent and passionate about, like you said, it could be ministry, it could be orphanages, it could, whatever it
Yeah.
is. Somebody else may look down on that, and that whatever. That's not their goal. That's not their passion.
Yep.
So
Well, I think
yeah,
that's the huge part as we wrap up is you have to figure out what success means to you. Right? It's different for everyone. And we've said this many times, but I'll tell you that if you believe success is money, cars, houses, vacations, your persistence and patience will be very minimal because as soon as you acquire, and you probably will, as soon as you acquire said money, it's going to go away. As soon as you acquire that house, that car, it's going to go away. It has to be tied to something so much more, something internal, something intangible. I believe truly that that's going to push you towards something much greater. And to be honest with you, I think those of us who are in business and those of us who are doing well, we have a obligation to do more for the world, more for society, more for the kingdom. That's just what I believe. But there's a lot of patience and persistence that's going to need to happen to see those things fulfilled. So, Joe, thanks for being with me. It's always a great time.
Oh, thanks for having me.
We're going to be popping out some more podcasts here, especially as we get involved in pickleball. We're going to be doing some live events as we open pickleball facilities this year. Hopefully we open 2. So stay tuned to that. That's going to be fun. Let me ask you this. If there's people listening and you've got a business owner that you think has a really cool story, very interesting upbringing story, success, not success, maybe they went underwater and there's a story there. If you've got somebody like that, shoot us an email or a message. You could shoot us a DM on Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, something like that. Or you can email us at info@McGuireGroupUSA.com, info@McGuireGroupUSA.com. I'd love to interview these people. We're trying to bring you some more interviews this year to bring some more content and high value for you all to learn from. So thanks for watching. Share this episode.